We've got another great show coming to you today. We're going to take a deep look into Josh Morris and his law enforcement career from rookie to sergeant. Stay tuned. You just might learn something out of this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fifth episode of the Knock and Talk Show. I am your host, Patrick Faulkner, and today we have Josh Morris with us. Super excited to actually get this one started. Josh and I go way back to 2010. It's been almost 12 years.
Almost.
Actually, just over 11 years because it was like August.
True.
So, yeah. So, Josh and I worked together at a police agency in Metro Atlanta, and Josh was one of my first rookies as a sergeant, and I had the pleasure of watching Josh grow in his law enforcement career. So, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Wonderful to be here.
I'm so glad we finally get this one.
Glad to get it.
Yeah, 3 postponements,
Yeah.
two major like incidences, things like that. But you're here.
I'm here.
That's awesome.
Made it.
You made it. All right. So tell us about yourself.
Sure.
A little bit about you before your law enforcement, because you came into law enforcement a little later in life.
I did.
So you'd already had sort of a career and family life and all that. So bring us up to your law enforcement career.
Okay.
And then sort of what you've done since 2010.
Yeah. So born in Charlotte, North Carolina, but raised here in Gwinnett County. Started off doing, after high school, did a little bit of electrical work, residential electric, installing electricity in houses.
You installed electricity?
Installed electricity.
Awesome.
And then left that and started, I was really into cars, automotive stuff, and got into the mechanic field. And ended up spending a lot more money than I wanted to in tools.
Sure.
And that are now sitting in the garage rusting. And every once in a while, I got to open the drawers and spray WD-40 in there just to keep the rust down, the surface rust off at bay. And just turned wrenches for a number of years. Did anything from just a normal tune-up to all the way up to engine swaps in cars. And started doing some ride-alongs with another friend of mine, and kind of got hooked into law enforcement that way. Married in 2006 to I guess you can call her a high school sweetheart. Met her through the church that I was attending.
Okay.
And now we have 2 kids together. We have a
back-to-back too.
A back-to-back.
Yeah.
I have a daughter and a son, and daughter's 4 and son just turned 1 September.
Awesome. Yeah. So the ride-alongs got you hooked.
They did.
Was it were they mostly nighttime ride-alongs?
They started off being during the day.
Okay.
I have Humphreys to blame for that. I called you out.
Hump.
This is on you, brother. Sorry. Love you. It's on you. Yeah. He was on day watch at the time, and did a lot of ride-alongs with him during the day. Waking up way earlier than I wanted to on Saturday mornings, and even some weekdays that I was off during the week, to go and ride along with him and see what all that was about, and just got hooked. And not long after that, he got promoted to canine handler. And so that changed his schedule to a nighttime schedule, and started riding along with him into the wee hours of night.
Yes.
And that was a very unique experience. And seeing what all he did and the impact that he was making that set the hook. Got me
And then
hooked.
came the line with the sinker.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
All right. All right. So it was the driving fast, the lights and sirens, the thrill of the hunt, right? Because once
Yes.
you make it into K9, now you're not it that it's any different than uniform, but now you have a specific purpose for a specific hunt
That's right.
and a whole new set of rules.
That's right.
And I loved the dope game. You know,
Mhm.
as a patrolman, as well as a narcotics canine handler. It's a whole separate set of rules, right? But we had rules, and when you follow the rules and still got the bad guy to either give consent, uh, even though they knew you knew they knew you knew it was there,
Right.
or you end up needing to use the dog for the air sniff, free air sniff. Playing by the rules and still winning when
Mhm.
they don't have to play by the rules. I always said that it was a lot of fun being good.
Yeah.
It was great to get lucky, you know,
Right.
but the bad guys had to be lucky every time.
Right.
We just had to be good
Right.
every time.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, the extra luck would kick in.
Right.
Yeah.
When you find that level of experience, that knowledge of where the line is and where you can't cross it,
Mhm.
when you find that line and you familiarize yourself with that gray area and everything up to that line, it becomes fun
Mhm.
to where you don't cross that line ever, but you know the tricks, you know the ins and outs, you know everything that you need to know in order to be able to call them out when you need to call them out, and they don't know it.
Right.
The free air sniffs, that was a game changer
Yeah.
for a lot of stops.
Yeah. It
That,
was.
that was something that it was kind of the out of the box thinking
Mhm.
that came along and kind of opened the door
It did.
for a
Yeah.
lot of
So
stops.
the line as well as the gray area are both supported by case law, and that's where
Right.
you have to stay in, so that you are still abiding by the rules and your parameters.
Right.
So nighttime, it's dark out, so the flashing blues, at least here in Georgia, it's well, I guess a couple agencies now are using blue and red, but mostly
Right.
it was blue and white lights, but that would light up streets, trees,
Yes.
the inner or the downtown area, the buildings, you know. Uh, what was that like as a civilian riding shotgun with a canine vehicle with the partner in the back going crazy
Right.
because it was working time,
Right.
sirens on, it's time
Right.
to work.
Yeah.
What was
And
that like?
it was a unique experience for me because I got to sit in the passenger seat and listen to since Hump was brand new, of course he gets the older vehicle, and with older vehicle comes the older light technology, which means strobes,
Mhm.
not LED. And so you get to hear the strobes. That
Yes, the
unique.
diodes and
Yes.
the resistors popping.
Yes. And so that was unique to me to hear that, but also, with his partner over my shoulder, it was neat for me to be in the passenger seat. I was younger,
Or
and didn't know, but I'm looking over my shoulder at this German Shepherd, and it's kind of neat to have a dog. A dog has always been a pet.
mm,
It hasn't been an officer. It hasn't been a tool
right.
to use in law enforcement. So it's always been a pet to me. So I'm turning over my shoulder and looking at the dog, and I'm thinking, oh, this is Fido. Hey, what you doing, buddy? Talking to him, and he's fixated on his handler.
Oh yeah.
And to see that focus of the dog is very unique, to push out all the distractions of a groupie in the passenger seat of his vehicle, to push out that and to focus on his handler. Say, no, we got to work.
That's right. Lights are on. Sirens on.
Lights are on. That was unique.
Yeah.
So that was odd. I remember, and I do need to apologize to Hump. I keep thinking back now, being on this side of the badge.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think back to a stop he did on 316 and
controlled access highway in Gwinnett County.
And he made the traffic stop for speeding, and approached the driver, made contact with the driver, and somebody stopped behind us. And I saw the headlights in the passenger side mirror. And next thing I know, I just kind of paying attention to that and not really knowing what to do. Not really in tune with officer safety, because I hadn't been through the academy yet. Don't know anything about law enforcement.
Sure.
And the driver gets out of the vehicle and starts to make his way towards the police vehicle and beyond. Once he sees Humphreys at the driver's, the violator's driver's door, Humphrey started to walk back, and I had the thought in my head. I was like, honk the horn. And I was like, no, I don't want to honk the horn. That's going to be a distraction for Humphreys. I don't need to be distracting the man while he's, under a traffic stop. But so I didn't honk the horn. And so as Humphreys is walking back, he meets the guy at the probably about the front fender of his vehicle, of Humphreys' vehicle, and was obviously caught off guard. And he told me later, I said, I thought about honking the horn, but I didn't know if that was going to be, the wrong thing to do. I just didn't know what to do in the situation. I had no idea. And he was like, he was, Humphreys, he's a great guy. And he said that would have been fine. More or less. Yeah, you should have. So Humphreys, I apologize. I should have honked the horn, brother. I am sorry. But I know now I will honk the horn.
Honk the horn.
Just honk the horn. Just honk it. It's okay.
Yeah. I don't have a horn here.
You can do the siren.
I could. Yeah, there you go. There's the horn. So ride-alongs, how long did you do that before you and your better half decided it was okay to make that jump?
So I started off doing ride-alongs with Humphreys, and I did ride-alongs with Snellville as well.
Okay.
Snellville Police Department had a ride-along policy, if you will, at the time. I don't know if they still do, but they had a ride-along policy, and met a couple of great officers there doing ride-alongs. That was probably a good couple of years.
Okay.
Before I went to the academy myself. I tried several different agencies to try to get in. Some of the agencies that were at the time putting employees or pre-service candidates through the academy themselves.
Okay.
But we're not. That didn't work out.
Okay.
And so I ended up putting myself through the academy.
All right. For those that are not in Georgia, there's a couple of ways to get into law enforcement. You can apply and get hired at agencies that run their own training programs. Some of the bigger agencies within Metro Atlanta do that. some of the smaller agencies can sponsor you more or less to go to a regional academy that is put on by the state. And then the other way is for you to finance it yourself and go to one of those regional academies, which there became a growing trend
Right.
in the early to mid 2000s.
Right.
With people who the bigger agencies were full.
Yeah.
And there were so many candidates that they could be more selective
Right.
of who they wanted. So I knew quite a few people that put themselves through
Right.
the academy.
Yeah. Some of the smaller agencies now are doing that. They recognize there are some candidates out there that are worth their weight
Mhm.
and sending them through the academy.
Okay.
So some of the smaller agencies are have been doing that.
That's good.
So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So worth their weight. Speaking of, first show plug. There you go. Little Raise Energy.
Raise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We got a couple different flavors. I figured you might like the voodoo for that voodoo that you do so well. Repsports.com. Put in your discount code of Pat Raise or Pat Raz, as I like to say it, to get 15%. Choose your poison. Apollo.
Baja Lime.
Baja Lime. It's a little spritish.
Okay.
And the voodoo, I'm not sure how to describe the flavor profile, but that one's my favorite, followed up by the Apollo. And this is the very close to a third.
I like the patriotic can.
It's all yours.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's all yours. Cracker open.
Okay.
I'm gonna do the voodoo. And once again, repsports.com. Use your discount code. Ready? And crack. Beautiful. Beautiful. Cilantro.
Cilantro.
So corny. I love it. What do you think?
That's nice.
Yeah. 0 sugar. So there's no crash.
No crash.
No crash. And it's got electrolytes. So it's,
BCAAs.
yeah, it's good for you. It's good for you. So the Apollo. All right. So join the academy. It was how long? 10 weeks?
Yes, 10 weeks at the
Yeah,
time. My
okay.
academy was the last academy of 10 weeks.
Okay.
After that, they went to 11, and now I think they've gone to 12 and 13. I can't.
Okay.
I don't know. It's been a minute since
Yeah.
I've seen somebody come through there.
I started off at an agency that had its own. We did 16.
Okay.
So we had a few extras that were offered later
Mhm.
for other training academies that weren't part of the core training.
Yeah.
Basic, what they call basic
Yeah.
law enforcement training.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of the intermediate classes
Yes.
that you could get. So again, in the state of Georgia, you've got 3 levels
Mm-hmm.
of your law enforcement or your peace officer certification. You've got basic, intermediate, and advanced.
Correct.
Yeah. So everybody comes out of an academy with your basic certification, and then to get your intermediate, you need to take certain classes of your continuing education. And then I think you have to have, is it your associate's degree or a certain amount of college hours?
Yeah, you have to have at least, because I just recently did this. You have to have at least, I want to say it's around 16 hours.
Okay.
16 hours.
So close to an associate's degree.
Close to an associate's, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you did 10 weeks.
I did 10 weeks.
And you graduated, obviously.
I did.
And then you were, did our agency at the time go to like the graduation, or had you like applied? Because I had a friend that put themselves through a regional academy, and there were recruiters the day of graduation.
Okay.
Sort of like the army that snagged my son, who shipped out this morning for army basic training. But they had recruiters go to the graduation date and pass out applications
Okay.
to try to get candidates that way. Is that what happened, or did you apply to this agency?
I ended up applying
Okay.
to that agency that picked us up. So I was one of, I want to say 3 of what they called it pre-service candidates. And so I actually went, started the email exchange with their administrative assistant and started the process. It was basically like applying for a job with the academy.
Okay.
And so there were certain application procedures, hoops I had to jump through. Luckily, since mom and dad pushed me so hard, I was able to maintain my grades through high school, and that afforded me the opportunity to take advantage of the Hope Scholarship, and that helped my way of getting into the academy.
So be cool, stay in school.
Stay in school.
Okay.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
And so I had a whole interview with the I guess you can call him chief of the academy.
Director.
Director. Yeah. Director is probably a better term of the academy. I had an interview with him, and he was really nice, and got selected to be a part of the of class 237, and got in, and got an acceptance letter, and started the academy April 2nd of 2010. And so that was when I got that email, that acceptance email, I was still with the automotive mechanic shop that I was at. And so the shop owner was very, he was a very nice man, and allowed me to take 10 weeks off from my job.
Okay.
And attend the academy. He knew this was my goal, and he gave me the leeway to go and do that. And so attended the academy for 10 weeks. I stayed with some friends of ours in Watkinsville, because the academy at the time was in Athens.
Okay.
On the other side of Athens.
Okay.
So I had to stay with them just to make sure that I was there at the academy on time. And so I stayed with them during the week, went home on the weekends, and so did that for 10 weeks.
Wow.
And at the graduation, there was, I was not, I don't like to toot my own horn. I don't like the recognition or anything like that, but the academy, my class selected me to be the HIRC recipient,
which
stands for Honor, Integrity, Respect, and Courage. Thank you. Thank you. No. Please. Thank you. So I accepted that reward, and with that reward came a speech. I had to give a speech at the academy graduation.
Speech.
Thank you.
Speech.
Class 237. Whatever. So as I finished my speech at the graduation, the director came up and kind of shook my hand as there was applause going on, and said, kind of whispered in my ear, there's a chief of such and such agency is in the crowd, and be sure to speak with him afterwards.
Okay.
And so there were several chiefs that attended the graduating ceremony that were there, and I kind of pictured it kind of like scouts. They were scouts,
Yeah.
and scouting the
Yes.
academy class, the graduating classes, to find out, which candidates were available for selection.
Yeah, because there were several regional academies, south,
Right.
east,
Yes.
and north. I don't know if
Mhm.
West Georgia had one. I'm sure they probably did, but
Right.
Athens was the pipeline for our particular area.
Right.
Some would come out of the north,
Hmm.
but not many because it's a long drive
Right.
to our particular area of Northeast Georgia.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you did a little intro,
Did.
and that started the workings, and then you ended up at that agency,
Right.
which was a brand new agency,
Right.
just coming on board as a 24-hour full coverage department. And I had been somewhat recruited by the assistant chief at the time, who worked with me at a different department,
Okay.
and that's how two of us ended up at the same place.
Hmm.
Since then, you've moved on, because the agency, and again, it'll remain nameless, but the agency that we worked at did not enjoy the officers being very proactive.
Hmm.
In fact, they made some strides to try to limit proactivity.
Hmm.
And when that writing sort of slung itself on the wall, you had already started looking.
Yeah.
And I said, go.
Yes. Yeah. It was with a little bit of your push. I could tell that there was an internal struggle going on with you, to push me on to bigger and better things, while also wanting to
Oh yeah,
hold on as well.
yeah. Not to toot his horn for him, but Josh was learning very quickly. Was picking up on the nuances, the little things, the attention to detail. Was very eager and hungry to be proactive. And though I myself was still pretty proactive even as a sergeant, I wanted to keep that on my team, but I also didn't want to limit your career and its potential progress at other agencies. So yeah, I reluctantly opened the door and was trying to kick you out.
But I'm glad you did.
Good.
I'm glad you did.
Good.
It's opened many more doors, and so I don't know if this is the right platform to use this for, but can't thank you enough for your mentorship, and many of the ins and outs and secrets that I will take to the grave.
No, you're supposed to share them. You're supposed to share them. Cheers. Not exactly the right platform, but I'll take it.
Yes.
That means a lot coming from someone that I thought very highly of and didn't want to get rid of. I hate using that word, get rid of, but
No, that's fine.
Honestly, he had to leave because it was a stifling agency. So anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
Second plug, Rep Sports.
This is
.com.
really good.
It is good. Yeah, it's so much better than the other, what they call it, not the creature, or because I can't say the other name. So
Right.
yeah, the Loch Ness creature.
Yeah, right. The cream goblin.
Yeah. So just about a year at that smaller new agency, and then you moved on to the a much bigger agency with a lot more potential. So what was that like for those of you that are at an agency that either you're no longer agreeing with, or because we all know there's the supervisors out there that are only out for themselves, or
Yeah.
want to become part of the Rat Patrol. And if you're struggling with it, what was it like to make the decision of leaving the agency that gave you the chance, that hired you and gave you the chance when, and and honestly, some other agencies didn't see that potential. So what was that struggle like, making that decision to move on?
That was tough. That at the time, I questioned a lot about what I was doing and whether it was the right decision or not. There was, at the time, they were talking about getting another dog or getting a dog, period.
Dog. Right.
First you dog. And I did a lot of work.
We did.
More
that's
so
right.
That's right. Did a lot of work to get a canine program started at that agency. Again, a lot went into that on your behalf, more so than mine. You kind of pushed my name attached to it, but there was a lot of inner workings going on that you did that I didn't at all. And you had researched, you had done a lot of the many bangings on the keyboards to put that together. But you and I did a lot to you and I did a lot to put that to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, we made field trips.
I forgot about the field trips.
Yeah, we went to the Auburn University canine program with their
after working shift.
Yeah,
I remember so hard and trying to stay awake on the way home. It just didn't feel right for me to fall asleep in the passenger seat while you drove after we had both finished shift. But
that breakfast, the breakfast at the Cracker Barrel was too heavy. I actually had the grandpa breakfast.
I think I had Mama's pancakes. It's delicious.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy to make a 3-hour trip one way and listen to a college spill about why their canine program was the best in the country and one of the best in the world. For us anyway,
right?
It wasn't the right program for us. Roll Tide. And then we another day after shift we went to North Georgia.
Yeah. I don't remember where that was. I remember going.
It was in Canton.
Okay.
And we didn't have the budget for what they were wanting.
Yeah.
And so we went to a third, which was also in North Georgia. And
that's right. That's right.
That one was in Maysville.
Okay.
And that was one that I sort of picked.
Yeah.
The chief at the time had come from an Alabama agency and was sort of affiliated with the Auburn program. And that was sort of what the agency was pushing for. And then out of the blue, they went sort of around us and talked to the GSP, which, if you remember from episode 1, stands for God's Special Police.
Yes.
For all of you that don't know that, GSP. They went to...
Just ask them.
They went to GSP and asked who they were using for their canine program. And they picked that kennel, Alabama Canine. And I'm actually glad they did. That was a great school. I really enjoyed it. So a shout out to Ricky Farley.
Ricky, that's right.
Yeah, Ricky Farley at Alabama Canine. It's alcanine.com. It was a great program. I enjoyed it. After finally being selected to be the handler, the first handler to the department, I enjoyed that school. So, the field trips.
Yeah.
That would have been a fun one to go to as a field trip, but we didn't get to go there.
Yeah.
They just sort of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to your original question. Yeah, it was a real, because canine was a goal, again, throwing Humphreys under the bus, kind of blaming him, um, right there in the jugular. Kind of blaming him. He got me really interested. How awesome is it to be able to blend law enforcement and being able to take Fido and apply him to law enforcement and
It's an amazing tool.
yeah, and utilize both um, to progress the ultimate goal of making society, making this country safer. That was very unique to me, and thought that was very very awesome. So that was a, try to be polite here. That was a carrot that was kind of dangled in front of me.
I remember.
And so that made the decision to leave that agency, that agency that gave me my initial step in law enforcement. That made that decision hard. Um, but looking back, I don't regret any of the decisions that I made. It was difficult at the time, but looking back, it was the right decision. It afforded you the opportunity to achieve a goal that you wanted, and it has since given me goals that I wasn't aware of at the time.
Right.
Opportunities to step in, and I don't regret it at all. I didn't know it at the time. Even decisions that I made after I went to the second agency, um, decisions I have made, career altering decisions that I made being at that agency. I don't regret them at all.
Good.
It's given me experience. It's given me opportunities that I never would have thought that would have been available and that I could never get back. So it was tough at the time. So if you're out there and you're thinking of making that step, I would encourage you to make a pros and cons list. That is huge. It seems very basic, even in the moment. It seems very trivial, but make that pros and cons list and weigh the options. If you're married, if you're with a spouse, if you're with a significant other, by all means, sit down, hash those out, and figure out what works best for you, what works best. Ultimately, what it boils down to is family.
Yeah.
Family comes first. This career does not.
No.
And so,
because the career will suck the life out of a family
it
if
will
you
absolutely
if
will.
you let it.
Yes.
So Josh is right. Again, we're not really career mentors. No, but both of us having changed departments in a career, it's ultimately it should come to what's best for the family.
Yeah.
Your career should come second, because if you put the career first, then the family comes last.
Yeah.
And that's not good. So you made the move. What was it like? Because the department you went to is a really high speed department. I mean, it's when I worked for my first agency, which was different than the one you ultimately went to, we didn't have a chase policy.
Mm-hmm.
We would try to direct the fleeing suspect into that agency's jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Because that agency had the reputation of chasing till the wheels fell off, and then they just pull the spare out, put it on, and keep going.
Correct.
Yeah. So going from a low speed agency to a high speed agency, what was that first? Because you ended up on night shift
right
at the beginning. What was that first night shift like?
So it was I want to say I had just got released from FTO,
Okay.
field training.
Officer is what the
Officer
O
is what the O stands for, but
FCO program.
the yes for so. And I actually, being green, never, aside from the ride-alongs, I had no concept of what law enforcement and more so officer safety. I had no idea. And so very green, even coming from the agency that we came with, not to take anything away from what you showed me, but there was a lot of, as you said, this agency was very high speed. And so there was still a lot for me to learn.
Like how to drive a car faster than 25 miles an hour.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was
stop sign to stop sign.
Yeah.
You can only get up to like 15, and that's if you're gunning it.
Yeah.
Going through puddles.
In a 2000 Impala 10 years later with 120,000 miles on it. Yeah. Continue. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Enterprise, for your passed on cars.
They were actually bought at auction from another agency.
I think they were the cars that Enterprise didn't want anymore. But going from that agency to the agency that I went with, there was still a lot to be learned. And
oh yeah, for sure. Which is why I wanted you to go.
Yeah. And so there was still so I'm not gonna lie, I did get extended on my FTO program. I wasn't getting it. And I like to think that a part of that was, as you said earlier, my attention to detail. I want everything that's a personal struggle with me, even in outside law enforcement. I struggle with attention to detail, even at the house. I want everything to be just right. I want the decision that I make to be the best decision that it can be the first time. I don't want to make mistakes. I don't want to have to go back and do things over again. So that's something that I struggled with. And so I did get extended on FTO, and whether it be decisions that I was making or if my FTO's decision, I did get extended once on FTO. And so that was tough for me. But once I did get released, I remember being at home, and the lieutenant that I got assigned to on that shift called me on my day off. I was supposed to have 3 off days before I was to return for my first shift.
Okay.
And he called me on it was either the first or second off day. He called me and said, "Hey, we're short. We had an officer call out. Can you come in?" And me being the green guy, the new guy, I said, "Of course, no problem." I didn't want to be the guy to ruffle feathers. So I came in and showed up just in time for roll call, and started my shift. And the first call that I was dispatched to, it was my own call. I did not have a backup officer to go with me, and got on scene, and I felt very vulnerable, felt very alone. It was very odd. For weeks I had that FTO in the driver's seat or the passenger seat for the second phase. I had that FTO with me, and they had even got provided me with their cell phone, call me anytime, but at the same time, you don't want to call them.
Right.
They're kind of seen as a supervisor in a way. They are the chain of command. You don't want to call them, but I got dispatched to this call of a dispute between a landlord and the business owner of a dry cleaning company. And the dry cleaning company hadn't paid their rent for a month or two,
Okay.
or maybe more.
Or maybe more.
And so much so that the landlord had taken them to court and they didn't appear. And the landlord had paperwork showing that they didn't pay their rent and they were behind. And so the landlord had changed the locks. So there were still clothes inside the business that were customers.
Okay.
And these customers were wanting those clothes back. And the business was trying to get access to the clothes, but the landlord wouldn't allow it because they were behind on rent. So I got dispatched to that call by myself, brand new. And it was, so this was evening watch that I was, so that was 3
Till 11?
Till 1.
Till 1.
Because we
10
were on
hours.
10s at
Okay.
the time.
Okay.
And so that was 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. And so this was shortly after roll call. So I would say 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'd almost want to say we had had a chance to get coffee. So it might have been around the 5 o'clock era, 5 o'clock time period. And so, which was evening watches busy, busy time. So I think I want to say a lot of my shift was tied up at the time. So I wasn't able to call anybody else. And so that left the lieutenant. And so I felt really great, having to call the lieutenant to assist me with
dispute,
a civil dispute, what ended up being a civil dispute. That was great. That was really awesome. I felt really special.
Yeah.
Calling the lieutenant out to help with a civil dispute.
It was probably boots up on his desk playing Candy Crush.
Yes, it was.
Don't know who that lieutenant is. I'm not saying anything.
And
that's what lieutenants do. The ship runs.
Right.
Lieutenants are there to make command decisions if there is a command level event.
Right.
Calling lieutenant out of the office who may be doing payroll, looking over leave requests, trying to do scheduling, that kind of stuff. You don't want to call the LT out,
right,
on a simple civil dispute,
right?
But it happened.
It happened, and you know what? I can't. That lieutenant, he understood. He didn't mention it, but he understood what he had as a shift, more so what he had as me as a rookie. He understood, and water off a duck's back. He took it in stride. He said he jumped in, helped me out. I almost want to say he lowered himself as a lieutenant, and this speaks a lot to him as a supervisor at the time.
Yeah,
he lowered his rank to a sergeant level, or maybe even below, to be an equal with me, to say, this is what I think should happen, and stepped in to assist, as opposed to being that somewhat typical ranking lieutenant to constantly grab his collar and say, and rub his bars, lieutenant bars, and say, kind of direct me, you should know better, or what.
Just go do this, and I have stuff to do.
Yes. I'm on level 32. Let me get back to it. So he was really
You
great.
just got a triple double. You got to get back.
But he jumped right in there, helped me out, and I apologized to him. He shook his head. He said, "Don't worry about it. Not at all." So that was really great to have that backing of him, to have that support that he gave me at that time. Being the first call, that was that kind of him sacrificing his level of authority to gain my level of confidence was huge
Yeah.
for me. And my step forward in my career at that agency, that was huge. And, so that spoke a lot to me. It spoke volumes to me. And, so that was good. That was a good level. I don't remember anything else from the shift that
No.
night. I
No.
don't remember anything. I don't
No.
remember what happened after that. I do remember that first call.
Sure. Which was a whole lot different than the first call at the other. Can you go unlock this door? So and so needs out. So my very first call out of FTO,
Yes.
I actually half of my FTO program was on the graveyard shift,
Okay.
so morning watch, down in the high speed area of the county.
Okay.
Okay. Second half was in the central area of that agency, which has some high speed calls, but I was on day watch the second half. So the coffee getting crew is my first shift off FTO was on a Saturday morning, and right out of the chute, I get an alarm call at a car wash at like 6:30 in the morning. Excuse me. So I go. It takes me a little while to get, because it was on the outer edge of my zone or my area. So I get there and I walk around, pull the doors, nothing. It's all secure. But who knows what set it off inside? It was motion, so a plant with the AC because it was summertime. But then the carjacking call comes out from a neighboring county. They're already in a high-speed chase coming into our county. Now, we were not allowed to chase again.
Right.
We were allowed to assist. We were allowed to observe the other agency, but we couldn't be the lead car or within the lead group of chasing cars. It was a pickup truck that was carjacked with a little girl in the back seat, an infant or toddler. I can't remember. It was a young kid. Barreling up the interstate into our jurisdiction. So the coffee crew was at Einstein Bagels, and I was not far from them at the car wash. So they were coming up the interstate and got off as I was going that direction. We sort of met coming. So I blocked, like Dukes of Hazzard, like this. Yeah. So they couldn't keep going that way. They had to divert or hit my car, which in 2000 was a 1995 Chevy Lumina stock off the showroom floor. Yes. And you mentioned earlier the lights.
Yeah.
Mine went blink, 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 blink. That was the flash pattern of my old school strobe Wheelan light bar. So anyway, the bad guy gets diverted back to now southbound onto the interstate.
Okay.
Here comes that chasing agency. Another agency that was involved because it went through their jurisdiction as well. So they had a chase policy. So they were chasing in case the chase car got knocked out. Well, it did.
Mm.
It was a Crown Vic, and that lead chase officer outdrove his capabilities and ended up the embankment in this huge plume of red Georgia clay dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then all the other wikis went by. So I saw my sergeant go that way. So I put it in drive. And now I go down the ramp. I make it up to 83 miles an hour. I'm the last car.
Not quite to 88.
Not quite to 88. No, there was no flux capacitor. 82, 83 miles an hour. The AC was off. My windows were up. And I was leaning forward.
Yeah.
Trying to get a little.
Right.
That was it. That was top speed. And there was a governor, so it backed me down to 78. I was passed by the wrecked officer and a somewhat disabled Crown Vic who blew my doors off. So I just turned the lights off, turned the siren off, got on the next exit, and I was essentially useless. The chase ended up going back down south into Metro Atlanta and wrecked out. And here's the sort of ironic part. Yeah, I got passed. That's right. It happened. The Chevy Lumina was not a purpose-built patrol vehicle. I got written up. Everyone from our agency that was involved, which was half the shift, I got written up by the lieutenant because we were involved in a chase. And we had like almost no chase policy. There were certain parameters, 7 deadly sins kind of thing. But it wasn't our chase. It wasn't our crime. We shouldn't have been involved. And then the chief of the chasing agency wrote a good letter to our chief with all of our names in it. An attaboy. Yeah. So my write-up got rescinded. Yeah. So we all remember the first call.
Yeah.
Right. Go back to your career. You probably remember your first call, the first time you got into a fight.
Yeah.
The first time you wrecked your patrol car, if you've wrecked your patrol car 3 times. I remember all 3. All those firsts. You remember.
Yeah.
So
I remember the agency that I went to. At the time, we were doing road checks when road checks were a thing.
Right.
Road checks aren't so much a thing anymore.
No.
I don't know if has anything to do with the stipulations that go along with it, or agency policy, or
lawyers.
There you go. Lawyers. So I remember always wanting to be the car that sat in the shadows, watching the road check, to wait for that driver to make that U-turn.
The turnaround car.
Yes. When he saw the road check and said, "No, I don't want anything a part of that road check." Yeah. So I remember being selected to be that guy in the shadows and waiting for that car to turn around. And remember seeing that car make that U-turn into the oncoming lane and hitting that button.
That's a pretty long one. There we go.
And hitting that lights to start that traffic stop, to find out why they wanted to avoid that road check
and committed an illegal U-turn, which was your piece
into oncoming. Exactly.
Yeah.
Into oncoming traffic, into the oncoming lane, to avoid that Romeo Charlie And that started it, the first chase for me.
Oh,
And seeing him hop that median, that was very unique for me. Apparently, I was in. I remember being in a Crown Vic. Apparently, the siren, because our chief at the time was very pro light package, very
yes.
pro siren, very pro howler at the time. The
Yes, I
howler
remember.
was the
Low frequency.
AKA, the low frequency, AKA howler, that would uh, um, kind of assist the horn, the air horn, to kind of rumble the ground or other vehicles to help with alerting other cars, other motorists, with sirens, law enforcement being present, or first responder being present. And so he made the jump across that concrete median. Luckily, the Crown Vic was just tall enough to make it across that concrete median, because the vehicle that was evading the road check was an SUV.
Okay,
So well capable of going off road. And so I went across that concrete median. I remember the bottom scratching. Remember bottoming out, but had enough speed to make it across that median and continued the chase out. But that howler was so loud that other officers thought my windows were down. And so I remember being on the chase, calling it out. Nobody else was with me. And because, the second car is supposed to call the chase,
Correct.
Supposed to give updates to dispatch about location, speed, traffic conditions, weather conditions, whatnot. And so, me being the only one, I had to give all that out at the time. And so I was giving all that out, and the siren was so loud, the lights were so bright. Other officers were keying up on the car-to-car radio saying, "Roll your windows up." And I remember being in the middle of the chase, my first chase, and looking up and saying, I almost want to say I put my hand up on the driver's side glass just to make sure my windows were up. I was like, no, my windows are up. Why do you want me to roll my windows up? And at the time, we're pulling through an apartment complex and going over speed bumps at Mach 3. And so calling this out, telling them where I am, and can't believe what's going on at the time, and see the driver bail out of his driver's side door while the vehicle was still in drive, and seeing that vehicle continue as he comes around the backside of it and runs off into the darkness. And that was odd.
Yeah.
Very odd. Never seen somebody jump out of a vehicle that was moving and have the vehicle continue to move. Even, I want to say it hit a tree, or it grazed a tree. And thank goodness that it grazed a tree, because there were vehicles parked at that apartment complex building. It had grazed a tree, and therefore, since it grazed the tree, it avoided the parked cars that were there. And so it didn't hit any of the parked cars. It went in that one spot that was just big enough for that SUV to avoid hitting the other cars, and came to a rest. in between those cars. And we never found that driver. He went running off into the darkness and into a neighboring subdivision that backed up to that apartment complex. You know, they know the
trails.
the trails.
Yes.
They know them
To the
very
trap.
well. They travel them very frequently,
Yes.
so they know them quite well. I don't think we found that driver, but that was unique. We all remember our firsts.
Yes. Yeah. So, in a short period of time, you went from patrol to CID,
Yes.
Criminal Investigation Division,
Yes. So,
detectives.
5 years in to that agency, there came an opportunity for that CID position, that investigator's position. And, you know, that was something that was way off in the future. I never thought that would come so soon. And, you know, at the time, you know, that was when law enforcement was one of those careers where everybody wanted to be a part of, but you had to be part of an elite group of people or know someone in order to get into. Not so much nowadays. Nowadays is different. But, you know, that was one of the positions that I thought, you know, I do want to be a part of that. I do want to have that experience of investigator, but that's later on in the career. I never thought it would come so soon. And so when that position came available, I had several other of my peers suggest, even supervisors suggest, hey, you should probably put in for this. These don't come around that often.
That's right.
Put in. And so I did. And I was even told by the lieutenant over CID that I was not the first pick. And so that was very humbling. That was very eye-opening at the time that I was not his first pick, but I appreciate his honesty.
Yeah.
That I was not his first pick. He wanted somebody else, but either he wasn't allowed to pick them or he didn't want to. He felt obligated to pick me. Whatever the case may be, he picked me. And I was very thankful for that. That was another one of those situations, you know, like you said earlier, changing agencies. That was a point in my career that was very challenging for me. A lot of soul searching, a lot of I went back to the pros and cons list.
Yeah.
Seeing what worked best for my family at the time, and made the decision to put in, because at the time I was still considering canine.
I remember that phone call.
An ultimate goal. Yeah, I reached out to you.
Yeah,
and
I remember
said,
that phone call.
I need your guidance once again.
We discussed that pros and cons list.
Yes.
And the fact that CID doesn't come around very often, and the fact that canine comes around even less.
Right.
To, what's the old saying, hope in one hand and something else in the other. See which one fills up first.
Right.
You know, the other cliche is one in the hand's worth, you know, two in the bush. So for those that are thinking of taking the corporal's test or taking the sergeant's exam or putting in for a CID position, they don't always come available.
Right.
You should put in for them, take them every time they do come available. Even if you don't get picked, you become a stronger candidate the next time.
Yes.
You have a better idea of what to
do.
expect.
Yeah.
And as you put it, these dream jobs, though it may not have been on your radar now, and it may change the course of your career, you have to do that family evaluation.
Yeah.
Where are you at now?
Mm-hmm.
Where would this take you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you waited, what's the possibility of what you're hoping for opens?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, you could be passed by,
Hmm.
not taking that promotion opportunity or that detective's opportunity could prevent a promotion in the future.
Right.
So yeah, I remember that discussion.
Hmm.
And you ultimately decided,
I did.
yeah.
I chose to put in, obviously, and was selected. And man, I can't tell you, though it wasn't my personal plan of the way things laid out. Because, like I said, it was my next step in my head of my career path was canine first, then maybe uniform again, and then investigator later on. Um, uh, Investigator came up first.
Because when you think of detectives, you think of the older guy with 25
You
years
do.
experience
You
with the
absolutely do.
fedora,
Yes.
especially
Right.
in the Atlanta area,
In the cigar.
right?
Right.
Who has the decades of experience,
He's the
and
guy to go to
right.
for all the answers.
So being young, because I was young too in my career when I went into CID. I
Mhm.
had only been in uniform 4 years.
Mhm.
And I too was told you weren't the first pick.
Yeah.
There were 4 slots and only 4 people put in that particular rotation, and just because of numbers, I got picked.
Yeah.
It is very humbling
Yes.
because it makes you realize you have to work harder now to earn the what's the word I'm looking for? You've been picked, so now you need to prove and earn the respect of the people who, in their eyes, settled.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. It gives you that goal or that line that you have to surpass in order to kind of earn your spot or to make it worth that lieutenant, whoever's making that decision for that pick,
right.
kind of earn your keep in a sense. Um, that was looking back, I really appreciate that lieutenant's honesty. Um, that that kind of upped my game. It kind of made me realize that I needed to change my focus to push myself even further than what I did. And even now, looking back, and that lieutenant, even to this day, realizes that I was outside of my comfort zone and got pushed to the point where, um, because I did end up getting called out once becoming an investigator, got called out in my kind of FTO process because they kind of have the mirroring
Right.
FTO
Yep.
process
Yep.
for investigators as well. Um, in that FTO process for investigators, I got called out. It was a home invasion with sexual assault that took place with 2 females. And so that really tested my limits as far as a law enforcement officer as well as an investigator, um, as to whether I wanted to stay in investigations. And so that was very challenging. That case was very challenging for me, and that lieutenant realized that and said, "I'm not sure if he's going to make it." And um, I did see it through. I pushed through as much as I could, and I saw it through all the way. And that lieutenant realized that and was grateful that I stayed. I was as well.
Yeah.
I um, I was glad I stayed.
Good.
That saw me through to many more cases down the road that I'll say that made me a better investigator.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And with that, we're at 1 hour and 14 minutes. We're going to pause this here, and this will be episode 1.
Okay.
We're gonna have an episode 2.
I like it.
So that people that are listening on Apple Tunes or Spotify or watching the YouTube don't have 2 straight hours. Because I can see we're only halfway through your career,
Right.
and we still got a lot to cover.
We do.
Yeah, we do. So, folks, come back. Josh Morris will be with us still. We've got half of his career done. We're going to go through the other half when you come back. This is the Knock and Talk Show. I am your host, Patrick Faulkner, and we are sponsored by Rep Sports and Raise Energy. Josh, hang on. We're going to do some more.
Love it. Y'all come back.